Like I said, I wanted to start off today by talking about some of the latest trends that we're seeing in houses of worship, and we're going to go into these each a little bit more in depth. We're seeing movement towards more advanced equipment, more advanced features on that advanced equipment. We're seeing more and more of our manufacturers offering resources available to consumers, especially in houses of worship, to make this transition as easy as possible. We're also seeing people in houses of worship that are not just utilizing the live streaming equipment for their viewers at home, but they're also using it to enhance the in-person experience. And then we're also seeing a lot of these cloud-based workflows, which we're going to be talking about today, specifically with PTZ Optics Hive Studio and Panasonic Keiros's REMI workflows. So let's talk about that move towards more advanced equipment. Now, a lot of houses of worship started streaming when COVID hit a couple years ago. Everybody had to go home, and we basically just put a camera and an encoder into a lot of houses of worship to make it so they could still, have their services and be able to communicate with their followers. But now we're starting to see that people are upgrading that equipment and expanding that equipment. Maybe you got a PTZ camera, but now people are starting to add a second, third, fourth, fifth camera, and they're making that transition from 1080 to 4K. Now, there's a couple different reasons why you may want to go into a 4K workflow in your house of worship. And when I say a 4K workflow, I do not necessarily mean that you are going to start streaming in 4K. A lot of platforms actually don't even allow you to stream in 4K yet. I believe YouTube is one of the only ones that allows you to do that. But when we say utilizing a 4K workflow, we're talking about getting 4K compatible cameras, getting 4K compatible production systems. So when the time does come, you already have that 4K camera in place. The other thing is, when you're utilizing a 4K camera, you get some benefits, again, even if you're not streaming in 4K. The biggest thing is being able to digitally zoom into a 4K image to then, extend the zoom range if you are exporting in 1080. It's called a lossless digital zoom because you get to have that 2x crop factor without losing any resolution because your camera is recording in 4K, but you're only outputting in 1080. And this is also great if you want to, cut up a piece of your service to post on social media. You have a little bit more play in being able to digitally zoom in, both in real time, but also in post-production if you are using something like the Cube R1 that we talked about yesterday to be able to record in 4K. Well, now you can make some videos in post-production. The other thing is with 4K is, although it doesn't necessarily make low light situations better, it can help, because when you're talking about a low light situation and you're utilizing some of these cameras manufacturers noise reduction techniques, you're able to, the more pixels that the camera is able to see, the better that noise reduction and computing can make that picture a little bit softer and not as grainy. And since we're talking about, what's the best case in a low light situation, we're also seeing a lot of houses of worship transition over to a 1-inch sensor, something like the Canon CRN 500 or a Panasonic UE 160. Now, these cameras also, because you have a larger sensor on them, they allow more light to hit that sensor. We understand that, a lot of houses of worship, you do not have the ability to bring in all of these high-end production quality lights. And although, that would make your house of worship look as best as it can, some houses of worship just can't do that. And so having a 1-inch sensor and a 4K sensor can help make some of those low light situations look a little bit nicer. The other thing with these 1-inch sensors is they look much nicer than some of the smaller sensors. When you're watching like a broadcast, a lot of the times they're using 1-inch sensors because it will give a shallower depth of field. And that's when you get that nice soft background behind you, as well as having like some bokeh effects. And that is really easily achieved when you're using a 1-inch sensor. The other thing that we're noticing is people are taking advantage of things like cellular bonding. We also talked about that yesterday with both LiveView and KiloView making cellular bonding devices. And again, when COVID hit, a lot of churches didn't necessarily have the network in place, so they would go with a cellular bonding device. And that is still something that a lot of houses of worship are doing, but now they're also using that to do like community outreach. If you're on like a mission trip or something like that, you can bring that live view or that KiloView with you with your camera and be able to stream from wherever you are back to your congregation, wherever home base is. So there's a lot of advancements in technology that people are utilizing. And as well as the hardware is advancing, a lot of the firmware and software is enhancing with this as well. And the biggest thing that we're noticing is almost every single PTZ manufacturer offers some form of auto tracking with the camera. And again, this is something that is relatively new. So if you get a new camera now, it's going to come with auto tracking. And auto tracking can be as simple as just following a single person. But a lot of these auto tracking software now have the ability to lock onto a single presenter and then follow them as they walk around. And sometimes when you're in a house of worship, you may have multiple people on stage. So being able to lock on to one person is extremely crucial. But some of our manufacturers are also making it so you can do group locking. So if you have your choir walking on or off the stage, you can have that group them as well, or track them as well. And then also, we're getting a lot more customization in terms of being able to block off places to stop tracking, and then also be able to control the zoom of how far you're zoomed in onto your host as they are walking around. So there's a lot of advancements that are being utilized in houses of worship. One of the things that we talk about a lot is volunteers are a big factor, and sometimes you can't get enough volunteers, or the volunteers don't necessarily have all of that experience. So if you can just say, hey, I don't need to have a camera operator on 3 camcorders, I can have one camera operator controlling a joystick at the back of the house, and then utilize auto tracking to supplement those other cameras. It's really starting to make a difference in these houses of worship. The next thing that is being advanced a lot is color management. A lot of the times, again, if we're talking about having cameras in your house of worship and now you're getting more cameras, color management is crucial because you want to make sure that your colors match as good as they can. And a lot of these PTZ cameras and camcorders on the market now allow you, with just a web GUI, to be able to do some color control as well. And some of the production systems, for example, the TriCaster, has the ability to auto match without you having to do anything. You pick a primary camera, and then you can select all of your secondary cameras, and the TriCaster will automatically color match. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but again, if you don't have the knowledge, you can start relying on some of the software that is available to do that for you. And it's something that we highly recommend that people take advantage of. The next thing that I want to talk about, and this is more just a pro tip, is take advantage of the resources that are available to you. Netgear is a perfect example. Netgear makes their M4250 line of AV switches, and these are switches that are designed specifically for AV over IP. And I'm not just talking about NDI, I'm talking about Dante, I'm talking about SMPTE, basically any form of AV over IP, these Netgear switches are built for. But if you are totally new to networking, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. It absolutely can be a little bit overwhelming when you are talking about, okay, I need to have 3 cameras and a controller and my switch all on the same network. Netgear offers both pre-sale support and post-sale support with their Network Pro AV design team. You can reach out to us and we will help you as well, but you can also take advantage of having Netgear there to help build your network with you, and both in pre-sale to make sure that you have the right switch for your workflow, but then also once you have the switch, they will help set it up with you. And the other thing is they're taking it a step further and they're having the ability now to take a class on networking and AV over IP infrastructure. So you can go on their website right now with Netgear Academy, and you can take this 2.5, 3 hour long course and get that high level overview of what networking requirements are needed for AV over IP, topology and the 7 layers. All of that great stuff is in that class. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of that, especially if you're just getting into the NDI workflows. There are other manufacturers that offer classes as well, such as VizRT with VizRT University. They have classes on every single software and hardware they offer. And although they don't give you direct networking classes, they do have classes on NDI and NDI tools and how you can implement all of those features into your workflows. So you can go to VizRT .com and look up VizRT University, and absolutely highly recommend taking those courses. The next thing is, if you are worried that a product is not going to be the right thing, you can take advantage of free trials. A perfect example of that is the Kairos Creator software, which Peyton will explain a little bit later, but then also PTZ Optics Hive Studio. You can sign up for the beta, and it is free to control 1 camera for 5 hours a month. So you can, try it before you take that leap in purchasing it. And as I said at the top of this slide, we are here for you, as well as our network of local dealers who can help you pick out the right equipment, install the equipment, and give you training on it. So if all of this really still feels too overwhelming, that's not a problem. We are here to help you. We can get you the help that you need. So feel free to give us a call and we will get you in contact with a dealer in your area to help do the installation. The next thing that we're seeing in houses of worship is, like I said, utilizing the live streaming equipment to enhance the in-person experience. And the most dramatic way is when you're looking at LED walls and displays inside of the house of worship. You can start putting things on those screens that enhance the experience for the in-person congregation. Things like a bigger picture of the person that's speaking. If you have nice big screens behind them, you can put up the sermon that they're talking about. Or, if you're going to sing a hymn, you can put the lyrics to the hymns on the walls in that room, because all of the video is already on your network. So you can just pop in a decoder right there and not have any issues. But you can also have breakout rooms or overflow rooms, or maybe where Sunday school is happening. You still want to be able to send those rooms the feed that the viewers at home are getting. So you can absolutely do that with, again, some encoders and decoders spread out throughout your building. And all you're doing is just taking that stream that's already on the network and displaying it in other rooms. So there are tons of ways that you can enhance your in-house experience as well as your online viewership. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is going to be a really good segue into our segment with Paul, is cloud-based workflows. There are a ton of cloud-based workflows that are available to you to be able to remotely control either your production system or your cameras from anywhere in the world. One of the first things that I want to talk about is Epiphan with their Pearl systems. Epiphan makes Pearl systems, which are switchers that you can connect either HDMI, SDI, NDI, SRT, and even XLR sources into and be able to do your mixing. Now, the great thing about Epiphan is all of these systems can be remotely controlled from Epiphan Edge. And this is something that anybody can do. So again, if we're talking about a lot of houses of worship using volunteers, if a volunteer is on vacation or is not feeling well, they can still run the show as long as they're feeling okay enough to, sit at their computer. They can still log in just through a web browser and control the Epiphan Pearl system that is in the house of worship, and they can control it from their home, and the show can go on without worrying about, oh no, our volunteer's not here, what do we do? NDI Bridge is a way that you can have cameras communicate with other production systems across the web. So say you want to bring a camera feed from location B into your main show in location A, you can do that with NDI Bridge to be able to send that camera feed to your production system and then incorporate it into your live stream. Bird Dog Cloud is a cloud-based program for bird dog cameras, where again you can control remotely the PTZ cameras from anywhere in the world as long as they're connected to the internet. You can control your pan, your tilt, your zoom, and all of your color exposure and things like that. I know some people were talking and asking about PTZ Optics Hive Studio, so I won't say too much about that because we do have Paul coming in. But PTZ Optics Hive Studio is another camera management platform that allows you to control your cameras from anywhere in the world. But the really cool thing about PTZ Optics Hive Studio is you can control other manufacturers' cameras as well. You don't just get control of PTZ Optics cameras. You can control a bunch of manufacturers' cameras. Panasonic Kairos is very well known for their canvas displays and being able to have unique outputs, which Peyton will talk about later today as well. But one of the big things is you can actually take one of their control panels, again, send it anywhere in the world, connect it to the internet, and as long as the core is also connected to the internet, you can control that core from anywhere. In fact, we have a core system here at our warehouse in New York, and one of our workflow specialists in Texas has a control panel, and he quite often will remote into our core here and set up some new workflows or demo the system off, just showing that remote capabilities.